Hello world. So having finalized our design, the next part will be listening for user interactivity. For example, a user can click on a button, we need to listen to that event. A user changes the input field here, for example, we need to listen to that event. And for us to be able to do that, we need to find a way of identifying the specific HTML elements using JavaScript. And with that, let's get started. So we begin by adding our first JavaScript file, and all we need to do is to simply right click here and then we create a new file, and the file will be called index.js. So once you have created this file, let me drag this down here at the bottom. You need to introduce it into your HTML file the same way we introduced our style sheet. However, for you to introduce a JavaScript file, you need to type script, and then you will see like you are presented with some options here. You want the src one, and then you hit enter. So the src value that you are going to give is the path to our index.js file right here. Okay, so if you give this a different name, make sure to put that name right here. So for us, we are just going to say index, make sure you select .js, all right? Then you save it. Once you save it, we can actually try and see if everything is connected, correct? The first thing we can do is to simply say alert, hello world. Okay, and then we see that everything is okay. All right, so we can start from here. So what JavaScript will be doing, it will be helping us, as we said, interactivity and also perform validations, as well as adding elements on the go in the HTML page that we have right here. You recall in the first parts when we were talking about IDs and classes, this is also a place that these two concepts will be applying so heavily. So first of all, let's see how we can actually select, for example, this login button, and we go to our HTML and we should see this is our login button right here. So when we look at it, we see that it already has a class right here. We give it an ID, okay? And this ID, we call it login with Facebook. So we will see how we can select this element by the ID, right? And also by the class. So let's start selecting with the ID. For you to select with an ID, you can start by creating a constant here, and then we say login with Facebook by ID. Again, this is a variable name. So if you are not familiar with this, what this does is that it will create for you a variable. Think of a variable as that thing that you want to keep referencing later on, and we will see it when we come to interactivity. So in this case, we are just saying login with Facebook by ID, but then instead of having it by ID, we can say login with Facebook element. Okay, so this name will tell us, okay, we are targeting the login with Facebook button by the ID here, and then the result that we'll be assigning to this variable is actually a HTML element. Then you can actually do this document. So what document refers to right here is the enclosing document of this web page. So to give you an analogy of what document does, think of this web page as a big PDF file. Then in this PDF file, there are different sections that you can actually access by maybe different page numbers. Okay, so you can say document dot get by ID. You see, when you hit dot right here, you have so many options, but what you want is you want to get, okay, because we are targeting an element, you want to get, you can get animations, you can get so many things, but in our case we want to get by ID right here. Just hit this one, or you can move down and then just hit enter. Okay, and you enclose it inside parentheses, and then inside the parentheses you see that you have been given an element ID, and we have assigned this button right here an element ID of login with Facebook. And the other important thing is that you notice that the value that goes in here, it should be a string. Okay, you create a string by simply having it inside the single quotes, or you can have it inside the double quotes. It's up to you. So for us, let's just do that, and then we paste what we just copied. And you see, like for example, I have a linter, and the linter will be replacing single quotes with double quotes. So it's up to how your editor has been set up. So don't wonder why the values were replaced here. Okay, and then we save this. Then we can actually test things out. Let me expand this a bit. Let's hit enter, and then we now console log. For you to be able to debug And for you to be able to display values, maybe as you are developing, you can use console.log is the most common one, but there are so many others. Okay, so inside here you can log out anything that you want. That is why you see here the message that you want to display has been given the value of any. So in our case, we just want to log out the referenced element that we have just obtained here. Okay, so for you to inspect, you can just Control Shift I. Okay, and then when you do that, the console will be opened, or you can right click and then you can inspect with console. It's up to you. So for our case, we see right here, you notice that when I hover, okay, when I hover on this logged out element, which is this one, when I hover on it, the highlighted element in HTML will be the login with Facebook action button. So we see that it's a div even if we are calling it a button. So that's just it. Then this element, you can now be able to access other events like user clicks, but we'll get to that. You can access events like hovering, you can access events maybe like blur, any event that you want. And the same goes to the input fields as well. So this was the first part where we selected by ID. So now let's do the second part where we get to select this element by the class name. Okay, so we can say constant. Okay, so login with Facebook element, and then when we hit enter, we see a complaint. You cannot have two variables with the same name, so we can call this two. We can say two, or we can actually do that. So we say document dot get element. So you see autocomplete works in your favor. You have so many options right here. You can get elements by class name, and you notice get element by ID, you know, but get elements by class name. You see, by ID, each element should have a unique ID. That is what we talked about when we were giving the analogy of a class of students, where each and every student, they have their own unique registration number, but these students, they can belong to the same class. So that is why you see get elements, okay, get elements by class name, get elements by name, get elements by tag name, you know, get elements by tag name, namespace. So there are so many options. Like you see, you have those options that you have right there, but for our case, we want to get element by class name. So you simply do that. Then again, this one, it accepts class names, okay? And this is a string, all right? And then again, we give it the string that we want, and that string is our class. So we can here paste it, and then the editor will format it for you. When we console log this, we should see it's a collection. Notice that the one for the ID is just one element, okay? This one is just one element, but the second one is a collection, and inside it, it has the collection of those elements which have this class, okay? I know this may seem a bit off because it's just one element. So what if later on we want to target maybe things like error images, or even error messages, okay? So when you target elements by class name, you will notice that you get an array. Then from this array, an array is just a list of many items, okay? These are square brackets that you have right here is what will tell you that you have selected the elements, in this case by class names. So now let's just try something out, like for the inputs, okay? We said that you can select elements by so many ways. In this case, we'll be focusing mostly on ID and class, but let's just touch on one more thing. Inputs, all inputs out there, okay? We can say document dot get elements, okay, by tag name. And the tag name we are going to give it is a qualified name, okay? And this qualified name is also a string. So when you hit the single quote or double quote, you see one thing, you have been given the possible values that can go here, okay? So many values. This is an endless list that you can actually select from. So in our case, we just want input, and when you start typing, autocomplete works in your favor. So all inputs out there will give us, let's move this at the bottom right here. So all inputs out there should give us so this is something that I want to show you. Maybe when you are logging out, so here you see we have logged the first thing here, we have logged another thing right here. So they are getting to be like so many. So for you to keep track, all you need to do is just simply this. And then you paste in maybe all outputs out there. Then here you put a comma, and then you paste in the actual variable. So the string, you will know, okay, this string right here, it actually addresses the variable right here. So anything can go here, anything can go here. And in our case, we just want all outputs up there. Okay, so you can get creative with this, but the key thing is the format, the name, or the way to address what you want to log out. Okay, then we save it. So when we save it, you see something interesting. It's a collection. Okay, the first one is an ID, which is this one. So the second one is a list or a collection or an array, which is for this one as well. And then finally, when we select by tag name, you notice that we have given it an input. We get 4 elements, because in our UI, when we hover on this, we are seeing that the elements, they are like 4. And you notice that the list starts from 0, so it's a 0 based index. Okay, so it's 0, 1, 2, 3. So these are 4 elements, but they start from 0. So when you click on one of these, for example this one, you can right click and then you can open it in HTML, or you can just click on it and you'll be taken, let's do this, to that specific element. Okay, and that should be it. So now we have seen how we can be able to select elements, either by the class name, either by the ID, either by the tag name. You can use so many options to select the elements. However, in this specific tutorial, we'll be heavily focusing on these two methods, the element by ID and get elements by class name. So having now this understanding, we will now proceed on to the next part. And in the next session, we'll be taking a look at how we can actually add interactivity, because we already have our elements selected. So I will be adding all the other elements, and then later on we will pick from there. So what you have learned today, make sure that you teach others, that you may grow together. And as usual, remember that you stop growing when you stop learning. And with that, until the next one.